Nothing like a full house to make it feel like a party. Welcome. I'm Susan King. I'm the Dean of the School of Journalism and Mass Communication, and very happy to welcome all the graduates of December 2012 and all the family and friends of those who have been able to meet this moment. And you know, I think this is a day, and we're going to love to hear babies, and you're going to find out why. So while we hear that gurgling of a young child, know that this is a moment we're all relishing. This is a day for those of you who like off-season, for those of you who like to walk the beach in autumn when the water is cold, but the sky bluer than the summer. It's for those of you who like Christmas shopping in the summer when there are no crowds. This is the day for graduates who like to be one of 40 who walk across the stage rather than one of 400. And this is a day for parents and siblings and boyfriends and girlfriends and husbands and wives who want to watch with pride as their special graduate comes across the stage, and they want to watch it close enough to be able to see that smile and that moment of achievement. This is your moment, too. So welcome to the December edition of Graduation 2012. This is the day for all of those of you on that side who have worked so hard to graduate off season, when we at the school wanted to go an extra mile to mark the moment. First, we picked this really wonderful historic location to give you an environment that befitted the moment. This is Gerrard Hall that has recently been brought back to its historic elegance. And I think you have to admit, this is a beautiful setting. It's also befitting because in the midst of our achievers, of course, the undergraduates, our master's degree recipients, those who have won certificates, and for those who are PhD scholars. In the old days, it would have meant that we were sending you out to become the news reporters, the editors, the anchors, the directors, the scholars, and the executives who would set the news agenda for the state and the country. But now we do that, and we do a lot more. Many of you will continue to set the news agenda and inform the public about government and nonprofits and education and health issues. But many of you will also be reinventing how information is going to be distributed. And so you are our future, and we want to mark that moment. Others of you will be sending messages in a new area that's very close to our speaker's heart. Many of you are going to be doing what we call interdisciplinary health communication. You're going to be giving the messages to people who trying to break their unhealthy habits like eating too much or smoking. And others of you will be creating communications and social media strategies that will help people have healthy lives, like take vaccinations or exercise. We're about the holistic sort of sense of tomorrow. Many others of you are going to be setting social strategies and social networking for business people and for new organizations. You are going to not just be the information leaders of tomorrow, you're going to be business executives, inventors, entrepreneurs, scholars, professors, and leaders all. At this time, in this complex world, anyone who wants to be a leader has to master the communication. It has to have a personal style and an understanding of an audience, and really in order to be able to connect with them, to be able to transmit a vision, and to be trusted by the public. So what you have learned in your UNC days, what you have acquired and struggled with, is understanding the very basis of what a venture is worth pursuing, how to convey what is important, and how to reach a public with meaning and values. To make sure this day was special for you, we not only arranged for Gerrard Hall, the warm environment here, but we also chose a graduation speaker that you will not forget, I promise. A professor who has helped to make UNC School of Journalism one of the most prestigious in the country. It's our own Jane Brown, who created one of our most important programs, that interdisciplinary health communication program. But I don't think I should introduce Jane today. This is a big moment for her as well as for you. A big moment for her husband, Jim, who is here with her daughter, Lily. You see, Jane will be retiring at the end of this semester after thousands and thousands of marked papers. I almost thought millions, but I didn't want to exaggerate. After hundreds and hundreds of undergraduates, after scores and scores of protégés in UNC master's and PhD programs. Jane is going to hang up her professor's hat and move on to the next phase of her exciting life. And so for this moment, we felt we needed someone of stature and prestige to give the introduction of Jane and to also mark your moment. There seemed to be no one better to do the honors than Provost Bruce Carney, who was a longtime admirer of Jane Brown's scholarship, her service to the university, and her leadership in faculty and women's circles. Bruce is a scientist, a professor's professor, and a leader who has served this university in some of its toughest days in the past few years. He has earned in these difficult times everyone's admiration and respect. Mr. Provost, will you come and do the honors?
It is very much my pleasure to introduce Jane Brown today. Susan has already described her as somebody who has made a huge difference to the students, to the faculty, and to the university. I could not agree more. She's a prolific scholar, I think, and I'll cite a few evidences of that. But where I see the difference really in her life and her contribution to this university is how she works with her colleagues, both within the School of Journalism and across the campus. An example, and I quote from a nomination for her C. Knox Massey Award, which I'll get to a little bit later. For several years, Jane led the school's honors program. She worked one-on-one with the students, often 10 to 12 per year, in addition to all her other duties. And with her guidance, I've seen the students produce honors theses of comparable quality to master's theses. That takes a lot of work. It leaves a lot of pride. You should be very proud of that, Jane. Another comment, while chair of the school's promotion and tenure committee, she organized a writing group that met weekly at her home. Being able to write is one of those key things we seek in our students, but we must also seek in ourselves as scholars. It is the difference that leads to success or failure. And all the members of her writing group achieved tenure and her promotion, and each of them credited Jane with playing a critical part in their success. So thank you for that as well, Jane. A leading scholar on media effects, on how adolescents use media and how media influences adolescent health. And I'm almost tempted to, again, relay the comment that she has made many times herself and that was made in the C. Knox Massey Award, how fun it is to be a successful scholar studying sex, drugs, and rock and roll. She's been co-author and co-editor of 5 books on adolescent health in the media. And among her service to UNC, she has served as chair of the university's faculty council. That's a very big job representing the entirety of 3,500 faculty members on this campus. She's been director of the Institute for Arts and Humanities Academic Leadership Program, a place where new chairs or chairs-to-be learn how to take on their new responsibilities, something most of us were not equipped for in any way, size, shape, or form. But somehow we managed to muddle through, and those who served with Jane in that learning process are very lucky people indeed. Her many awards include the Carolina Women's Leadership Council's Faculty Mentoring Award, for reasons you've just heard, and as I mentioned, the C. Knox Massey Award, which is the highest award the university can bestow on a faculty or staff member. My interactions with Jane have been on various meetings at faculty councils or various meetings at the deans or department chairs. But I've also watched her on the Institute, She served on the board of the Advocates for Youth and the Institute of Medicine's Board on Children, Youth, and Families, and the National Campaign to Prevent Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy. Perhaps most important to me personally as provost is she chaired the UNC task force on the future promotion and tenure policies at the university. Universities can be very hidebound, tradition-bound. And what we were judged by when we got tenure should be, in many people's minds, the conditions under which the current generation of scholars are judged. But scholarship has changed. There are new modes of publishing, new modes of demonstrating scholarship, new necessary means to engage the faculty beyond just teaching the students and forming committees. Jane's task force worked long and hard, and they produced a report that was incorporated inside the university's academic plan, an effort I began a few years ago. Now, universities are also very slow to change, but I'm proud to say, Jane, thanks to your efforts, that of the 13 schools at the university, we now have in hand 11 new promotion and tenure guidelines with expanded policies and more thoughtful summaries and clear presentations for the junior faculty at this university. And the other 2 will be done before you retire. Thank you, Jane, for all you've done for the university, and please, the podium is yours.
Ah, what a privilege. They put this stand here right for me. Thank you, Provost and Dean King. That's really a privilege to be introduced by you. You've been a fabulous partner. Thank you. So today I want to talk about the art of Venn. And graduates over there, I thought you might be in withdrawal from PowerPoint, so we needed one more PowerPoint. So let's see how this goes. So I want to talk about how Venn diagrams have helped me guide my life. And I want to talk about how you might think about using Venn diagrams to create a life you love. So Venn diagrams were created by a guy named John Venn, a mathematician named John Venn, no kidding. And Venn diagrams are the idea that you can illustrate sets of elements with big circles. And so here's an example that's near and dear to my heart. You have a big circle representing great public universities, great public research universities, and you have another circle representing great schools of journalism and mass communication. The sweet spot, the intersection of those 2 sets is where you sit today, the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. That's what we call the sweet spot, or the intersection of those 2 sets. Okay, and so all of us are born into this kind of a Venn diagram, where what you have is you are born into a specific moment in culture, a historical moment, a specific family. You will be faced with some good luck and some bad luck in your lives, and you will get to make personal choices. You get to make decisions inside in that context. And where you are is the sweet spot. You're in the intersection of those 3 sets of elements. So I'll illustrate this a little bit with my own life. I grew up on a dairy farm in Maryland. My twin sister Judy, who is here today, and I learned how to work very hard, very early. So we had to-do lists when we were 3 years old. We were hanging up laundry when we were 3 years old. We also had the good luck to be born into a family that valued education. My father and mother had both gone to college and we knew we would go to college too. So that was good, the good fortune also of being born in the 50s, and they had the resources to send us to college, to let us go to college. Then I also had the good fortune of growing up in the 60s. So that made me an adolescent in the 60s, and that's where the sex, drugs, and rock and roll came from. That was a very fun time to be an adolescent. It also, I decided to go to the University of Kentucky. The secret is that I applied to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, but did not get in. In 1968, so I always say, and so now I'm a full professor, I didn't get in because what I learned later was I was an out-of-state woman student in 1968, and we had begun to let women in to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill only in 1965, only 3 years earlier, and there was a big quota. There was a small quota for out-of-state women at that point. So things have changed, yes. And so what I also learned in this period was that you can change the world, because I became a feminist, an anti-war activist, and we did change the world, and we changed the culture. And so that has also been a life lesson learned from that historical moment. There I am as a wannabe hippie. I kind of wanted my clothes a little cleaner than most hippies I was associating with at that time, so I was kind of a wannabe hippie. And then I made the fabulous decision after graduate school at the University of Wisconsin, a postdoc at the University of Michigan, to accept a job offer here at Carolina. It was a much different school then. This was the catalog in 1977. There were fewer than 200 students, only 14 faculty. I was one of 3 women on the faculty at the time. Jan Yap and I came the first year, that year in 1977. We were still over in this little building over in Gerrard Hall. And here I am with Jim Shoemaker, one of our wonderful faculty back then, representing sort of both sides of the house. He was a professional, and I was the researcher. And he is the namesake of the Shoe cartoon, wonderful guy. And then this is the faculty in the early 90s. It's much smaller, as you can see. And then we'd grown this significantly by the early 2000s. Dramatic growth. This is with our faculty and staff. So my research, as the provost suggested, has been driven. It came right out of my adolescence in the 60s and that time period, that culture, where I stayed very interested in what is the idea, what is this life stage adolescence, and how do adolescents learn about who they are supposed to be and how they can live into this cultural moment they find themselves in. So I've always been interested in adolescence, and then I got more and more interested in how do the media influence adolescents' health. And I did a series of studies over the past couple of decades about violence on television, for example, how the media affect obesity, thin ideal media affect body image and eating disorders. I've studied how cigarettes, how to keep kids from starting to smoke cigarettes and that sort of thing. And so it's been a fabulous intersection of these 3 passions. And that's, graduates, what I would urge for you to think about is, what are you most passionate about? What wakes you up in the morning? What do you think about when you're running or in the shower even? What are the things that you are most interested in? And see if you can craft a career that is the sweet spot of those things you're most interested in. It will change as you develop, but if you can keep thinking about what are those things that I'm most interested in, and try to find a career that serves that. That's what I've been able to do. Very, very fun when you get to work right there where it is most exciting. Now, this is what it looked like this is what the media looked like when I was growing up. Not quite as pristine as this in my living room, but my father did have to go up on the roof of the building, of our house, and fiddle with the antenna to get 3 TV stations, right? Remember? Yeah, and so about a decade, when we started one body of research, we interviewed young people to sort of see what's it like. This was a decade ago, and I interviewed this young man in Durham, and he had commandeered that spare room above the garage, and it made it into his media central, basically. This was his media room. His cell phone in his hand, his TV, music system, his computer. Hundreds of channels of television, like that. What's the difference between those 2 pictures that I just showed you? What's missing? Parents, right? We interviewed the mom, too. She rarely ever came upstairs. She had no idea what he was doing in his little media center, all right? And that's really what it's like today. 20% of 2-year-olds have a television in their own bedroom, like that. So this is really right with us and really affecting the lives of our children. That's what I've been studying. Now, the other thing that this is a Venn diagram that runs the university. And again, as professors here at the University of North Carolina, we have the privilege to not only be great teachers and work with these amazing students, but also we're supposed to further knowledge, create new knowledge, and then give that back to the state that supports us. So what we try to do is to work in that sweet spot where we are teaching, doing research, and service that serves the state as well. So let me give you 3 examples of that. So here at the School of right from the School of Journalism, Lucila Vargas, my wonderful colleague, has developed a program where she's working with Latino youth, and they run a Spanish language radio program right here in Chapel Hill, Carborough. My wonderful colleague, Kathy Packer, is the head of the UNC Center for Media Law and Policy, where they continue a dialogue about how to continue the freedoms of the First Amendment. And then, as the provost suggested and the dean, we've been working with a number of colleagues in the school on our interdisciplinary health communication course, and Joan Cates and Seth Noor and Heidi Kaminsky, Sri Kalyanarama, a number of other faculty, Nori Camello, all working together to think about how can we use communication to more effectively communicate about health. So those are all at the intersection of teaching, research, and service. A wonderful kind of mission. And so finally, this Venn diagram is kind of my family's Venn diagram, if you will. My wonderful husband, compose, okay. James is also a graduate of the school, and he writes advertising copy. So he can distill a huge philosophy down into 6 words. Here it is. So our family tries to live in this sweet spot of doing good, being nice, and having fun. This is what I wish for you, that as you go into the world, that you find a sweet spot where you get to live a life as good as the life I've lived. And I'll show you where we are now. My family, we've sold the family farm to the Amish in Maryland. We've brought the dinner bell here to Chapel Hill. And my sister, Judy, lives with us here in Chapel Hill. My daughter, Lily, is a junior at UNCG. And this is our newest addition, who was communicating earlier. My son, Alex, and his wonderful wife's granddaughter, Poppy. So go forth, find the life you love, and do good, be nice, and have fun. Thank you very much.
I told you wouldn't forget it, right? Just one quick thing. You can see why I'm a year. Yeah, it's hard to kind of get it, but I mean, people talk all the time about family and how important it is. Didn't you just feel it? I mean, it's one thing to talk about that as a communicator. But also to this morning, I have the great privilege on January 2nd of knowing I've been dean for a year. And when you look back and you see, wow, look at what I've had the privilege of being part of. But I've been totally a failure, because when you have a year, you know, you kind of look, all right, so how'd the year go? I was a total failure. I tried every way I knew to persuade Jane to stay. Could not convince her, because she really was on for the next part of her Venn diagram. And she knew who she was and knew what she was about, and I couldn't persuade her. I just guess we're going to have her back for just about every graduation, though, because it's going to be hard to top. But I knew we couldn't just say simply, thank you, Jane. So just one more thing. You can tell that Jane has really reached the triple crown of what you can do in UNC, and she described it so well, that sense of excellence in service, the excellence in scholarship, and the excellence in teaching. And that is what this university is about. And I worked with 12 universities, great research universities, before I came here in a totally different capacity. This university that's the differentiator. excellence in teaching, excellence in scholarship, and excellence in service. And so you have won with that triple crown, the highest award we can give at the school. It's the Dean's Award in recognition of a career well-lived. And so on behalf of all the graduates today, all of your faculty colleagues, the J School staff, I want to say thank you. And will you come up and get this award, Jane? Come on. It's kind of cool looking. So. But the bigger award is, look how many faculty are here. Jane is loved. But now it's the time you've been waiting for over there in blue. This is your moment, the moment for the sheepskin in hand, and we're going to start today with the undergraduates. Would Senior Associate Dean Chris Rausch please come up and introduce our undergraduates? And I know he doesn't need this.
Actually, I think you need to come here. Jeremiah Gerlach. Johnny Gill. Nathaniel James. Justin Mayhew. Carter McCall. Lauren Miller. Chris Moore. Miranda Murray. Sandra Schmidt. Gina Smilek. Caitlin Trela. Rebecca Yan. Caitlin Yannick.
All right, now we're going to do our graduate students. Right. First, we have two graduates from our graduate certificate in technology and communication, Ann Sutton and Kyle York. We have a number of PhD and master's graduates who could not be with us today. I'm going to read their names first. Master's graduate Casey Lewis Farrell, and PhD graduates Kelly Kent Davis, Carolyn Martindale Edie, Melita Marie Garza, Yusung Kim, and Robert Kyle McKeever. In addition, we have one master's graduate here today, Vanessa Ruth Patchett.
All right. You're lucky you don't have to wear these all the time, you know. We want to give this full ceremony, so that's why we wear these. But we are almost finished. We want you, there are two things that we want you to know. Before you leave, we're going to have a reception over in the J School lobby. We'd love you to come over, lemonade and kind of cookies, and just to sort of see some of the faculty. I want to make sure I take a moment to just thank all of the staff who put this together today, because it is a Sunday and they are here bright and early, moving poinsettias. If you haven't seen them, they are spectacular. And all the staff who have been part of the student guidance counselor under Sharon Jones, they have done a magnificent job, I think, of getting us to this moment. So just to thank you. But it is a moment of goodbye for many of you. And in order to mark this moment, I just want to say I found another thing that's part of the UNC DNA. It's never goodbye forever. I keep meeting people who graduated from the 40s and 50s, and they'll say they never feel better than the moment they walk back on campus. So we want to make it very clear that you are always invited back. This is your place. Everyone does seem to come back, and what I have found in my year of meeting alums is they say things like this, yeah, 153. I hated 153, but you know what? 153 made me a great writer, and I can beat everybody in my office or anywhere because I can write clearly and concisely. I'm glad I took 153. And then they go, and you know that media law class? Oh, God, it was so hard. And then it gives me a whole picture of how the industry is changing. It was so worthwhile. PR cases and campaigns, I thought, what is this about? And then I was the one who was able to jump in and immediately carry it out. I think you're going to find the foundational elements of this school will serve you well no matter what you do, because we want you to walk out of here able to be the business leaders, the entrepreneurs, the inventors, all the things that we don't know are even going to exist 20 years from now. But we want you to go out with two basic things, and that is writing well and thinking critically. Because if those two things, you're going to be able to beat the pants off, and you know, we compete at UNC, so compete. For all of you, and for Jane, this is not an ending today. It really is a beginning of something else that's part of the UNC stories. So if you're going to have live a life that you love, I figured, and I didn't even know that was her line, but I figured I had to find a 1960s quote because I knew Jane. So I'm going to leave you with a quote from John Lennon. Count your age by friends, not years. Count your life by smiles and not tears. I hope you will join us at Gerrard Hall. Congratulations to you all. We're going to march out of here, faculty, provost, and graduates, with style, with pomp, and as Tar Heels. Thanks very much.